You gaze upon the monuments of others with a hunger that borders on the parasitic. You scroll through the curated galleries of the digital age, salivating over the matte black supercars, the cantilevered villas suspended over the Mediterranean, and the bespoke suits that cost more than the average man's annual sustenance. You mistake these artifacts for power. You mistake the accumulation of matter for the presence of sovereignty. This is the fundamental error of the serf class. You are attempting to erect a skyscraper on a foundation of swamp water, and you wonder why the structure collapses the moment the winds of fortune shift. Before you can command the legions, before you can maneuver capital like a grandmaster moving pawns, and before you can etch your name into the bedrock of history, you must conquer the anarchy that lives between your own ears. You must build the empire within before you dare to lay a single brick in the world outside. Consider the tragic architecture of the lottery winner. Here is a man handed the keys to the kingdom, wealth beyond his capacity to imagine, access to the finest pleasures, and the supposed freedom from toil. Yet within a few short years, the gold has turned to dust. He returns to the gutter, often in a worse state than where he began, broken by the weight of a crown he had no neck muscles to support. Why does this happen? It is because his internal reality was a hovel. He poured the ocean into a cracked clay cup, and naturally, it shattered. He possessed the assets of a king, but retained the mindset of a peasant. The external empire cannot survive if the internal garrison is unmanned. The world is ruthless. It seeks equilibrium. If your internal value does not match your external valuation, reality will violently correct the disparity until you are back where you belong. The sovereign mindset is not a mantra you repeat in the mirror while hoping for a better day. It is a terrifying restructuring of the psyche. It is the cold, calculated demolition of the weak self to make room for the ruler. This process begins with a ruthless audit of your mental real estate. Most of you are not the masters of your own minds. You are merely squatters in a space occupied by foreign invaders. Your thoughts are not your own. They are the echoes of your parents' fears, the conditioning of a mediocrity-obsessed society, and the parasitic algorithms designed to harvest your attention. You are a puppet dancing to strings you refuse to see. To build the internal empire, you must first secure the borders. This means total information sovereignty. You cannot build a fortress if you leave the drawbridge down for every piece of trash media and emotional contagion to wander in. Imagine your mind as a citadel. In its current state, it is a ruin. The walls are breached, the treasury is looted, and the throne room is occupied by court jesters, your impulses. These impulses dictate your actions. You see food, you eat. You feel anger, you lash out. You feel fear, you retreat. This is the biological software of an animal, not a sovereign. The first stone of your empire is laid when you assert dominance over these impulses. This is not about the suppression of emotion, but the architectural containment of it. You must build a dam to hold back the river of instinct, using the hydraulic pressure to drive the turbines of your ambition. When you want to quit, and you force yourself to continue, you are laying a brick. When you want to speak, and you choose silence because it offers a strategic advantage, you are mixing the mortar. Discipline is the infrastructure of the internal empire. It is not a punishment. It is the skeletal system that allows the organism to stand upright against the crushing gravity of existence. Without discipline, you are an invertebrate, amorphous, soft, and easily crushed. The sovereign mind does not rely on the fleeting vapor of motivation. Motivation is for the amateur who requires a cheerleader to get out of bed. The sovereign operates on duty and protocol. You do what is required because you are the architect of a grand design, and the architect does not sleep until the blueprint becomes reality. This requires a level of cynicism regarding your own comfort. You must view your desire for ease as an enemy saboteur attempting to plant explosives in the foundation. Comfort is the killer of kings. The moment you feel safe is the moment you stop expanding. Once the borders are secured and the infrastructure of discipline is built, you must furnish the throne room with the philosophy of detachment. The modern man is a neurotic wreck because he is attached to outcomes he cannot control. He ties his self-worth to the fluctuating graphs of the stock market, the fickle approval of women, and the applause of the crowd. This is slavery. To be sovereign is to be an island of order in an ocean of chaos. You must reach a point of psychological opulence where the external world can burn, and your internal temperature remains unchanged. This is the Stoic ideal weaponized for the modern era. When you no longer need the world to validate you, you gain the power to shape the world. The man who is willing to walk away from the negotiation table is the one who controls the deal. The man who does not need the relationship is the one who leads it. This internal fortification creates a vacuum of power that the universe rushes to fill. This is the metaphysical mechanic of success that the uninitiated fail to grasp. They chase money, and it flees from them like a frightened animal. The sovereign builds a trap, a mindset of such gravity and competence that money has no choice but to fall into his orbit. When you have constructed an empire of competence, resilience, and strategic foresight within your own mind, external manifestations of wealth are merely the lagging indicators of who you have already become. You do not become a millionaire when the bank account hits 7 figures. You become one when your character can no longer tolerate poverty. The reality catches up to the identity. However, the construction of this internal empire is a lonely endeavor. It requires a withdrawal into the shadows. You must be willing to kill the part of you that craves acceptance from the herd. The sheep huddle together for warmth. The wolf hunts alone. You will be misunderstood. You will be called cold, obsessive, and arrogant. These are the compliments of the weak, paying tribute to a strength they cannot comprehend. You must learn to subsist on the silence of your own company. In that silence, you will find the blueprints for your conquest. If you cannot sit in an empty room for an hour without checking your device for validation, you are not ready to rule anything. You are a slave to the dopamine drip, a junkie in a high-end suit. The architecture of the sovereign mind is built on the bedrock of ruthlessness toward one's own excuses. There is no court of appeals in the mind of a king. If you fail, it is your fault. If you are weak, it is your choice. This radical responsibility is heavy, which is why so few choose to carry it. It is far easier to blame the economy, the government, or the bad hand you were dealt. But blame is the currency of the victim. The sovereign deals only in the currency of action. He looks at the rubble of a failure and sees only raw materials for the next construction. He does not grieve the loss of a battle. He analyzes the tactics, adjusts the strategy, and redeploys the troops. As you build this internal structure, you will notice a shift in the way the world responds to you. People smell sovereignty. It is a pheromone of total certainty. When you speak from a place of internal order, your words carry the weight of law. When you move with the precision of a man who has conquered his own chaos, obstacles seem to dissolve before you reach them. This is not magic. It is the physics of will. The external world is malleable. It bends to the strongest reality present. Most people have a reality as thin as paper, easily torn by the slightest resistance. The sovereign mind is diamond, hard, clear, and unbreakable. When the diamond meets the paper tears. Do not mistake this for a call to ignore the material world. We are not monks seeking enlightenment in poverty. We are emperors seeking dominion. But the conquest of the material is the final step, not the first. You cannot wield the sword if your hand trembles. You cannot manage a conglomerate if you cannot manage your morning routine. The empire within is the training ground, the simulation where you run the scenarios of power until they are instinctive. You destroy the weakness inside so that when you face the enemy outside, you meet him with a united front. Ultimately, the sovereign assets you seek, the liquidity, the land, the leverage, are merely the decorations of the palace. The palace itself is you. If you are hollow, the decorations will hang on rotting walls. If you are solid, if you are formidable, then even if you are stripped of every dollar and exiled to a desert, you will build another empire from the sand. Because the blueprint remains, the capability remains, the sovereign remains. Stop looking out the window at what you want to own, and look in the mirror at what needs to be built. The excavation begins now. Pick up the shovel of introspection and start digging. It will be dark, it will be painful, and it will be lonely. But at the bottom of that pit, you will pour the foundation of a legacy that the world cannot erode. Build the man, and the empire will follow.